500 years ago, my country India had more wealth than Europe. Then suddenly, some countries began to overtake us. What happened? It is tempting to credit the West's success to greed and guns, germs and steel. These did play a role. A responsible analysis, however, cannot overlook the impact of the Protestant Reformation. Economics has become such a complicated subject today that it is difficult for many to understand a simple secret of the West's progress. That secret was a woman, Mrs. Catherine Luther. Catherine von Bora was a runaway nun who married a monk, Martin Luther. She began the change that sociologist Max Weber discussed in his classic The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. The newly married nun and monk had no money to buy a house. Therefore, the local prince, the patron of Luther's university, gave them the empty monastery. But how was Katie to maintain a large house on a professor's meager salary? She turned her home into a paying guest house for university students. That required her to feed 30 to 40 people every day. How do you feed so many people? Katie started growing her own fruit and vegetables. Then she turned her home into an animal farm. The money she saved was invested in a second, third, and fourth piece of land. One of them had a creek flowing through it. Katie turned that creek into a fish pond. By 1542, the Luthers owned more real estate in Wittenberg than any other citizen. As soon as she bought land, Katie began developing it. Farms needed buildings for agriculture as well as for housing her employees. So Katie became a builder. Back then, cities did not provide clean drinking water. Therefore, Katie ran a brewery. One can still buy Luther beer in Wittenberg. Martin taught Bible's work ethic. Katie practiced it. Had Martin Luther followed the Buddha as his guru, he would have remained a religious ascetic, begging for his food. But Luther followed the Bible. It condemned laziness as sin. God's commandment, "You shall not covet," meant that people must create wealth. The eighth commandment, "You shall not steal," meant that every person had a right to his property. While the state was responsible for protecting a citizen's property, the family and church were responsible for producing citizens that would not steal a neighbor's produce. I grew up in North India. The land and climate were perfect for all kinds of vegetable and fruit. This could have created a vibrant agro-industry. But the average peasant did not grow them because the upper caste men would come to his farm in broad daylight to help themselves to his produce. If he left his wife to protect his farm, she would be raped. Had Katie lived in the Soviet Union, she would have had no motivation to buy lands and develop them. Because atheism does not believe that "you shall not steal" is God's command. That gives the powerful the right to take over your land. Catherine Luther did much more than feed a few dozen students. Every day, Katie helped her husband disciple Germany's future spiritual and intellectual leaders. She transmitted to German pastors the Bible's spirit of economic enterprise, the art of making money with whatever little you have. At dinner, the boys would often ask her husband questions and they would take notes. These discussions applied the Bible to everyday life, including to the economic life of ordinary families. These were published as Martin Luther's Table Talks. They enabled scholars such as Max Weber to understand how Luther's exposition of the Bible created Europe's spirit of capitalism and economic progress.